welcome to the kbbreview podcast. I'm Andy Davis as always, and this is another very special bonus episode of the show. And when it comes to brands with long and illustrious histories, it doesn't get more long and illustrious than Aga Rangemaster. The Aga itself is of course as English as Stephen Fry drinking tea, eating fish and chips, wearing a bowler hat. And there are very few kitchen retailers out there that haven't stocked Rangemaster at some point in their existence. And now, after a few uncertain years, they're having a bit of a resurgence under their new MD Dominic Worsley. Formerly of Miele and then a short stint at CDA, he has been tasked by parent company Middleby to put these classic brands back on the map. So how's he going to do it? What are his plans? And where do independent kitchen studios sit in them? But first, Aga Rangemaster are sponsoring the Kitchen Designer of the Year project cost over £50,000 category at the kbbreview Retail and Design Awards 2026. Now that's just one of the trophies at the biggest awards event in the sector, and entries are open now. We've got awards for kitchen and bathroom designers, retailers, installers and suppliers, and it's totally free to enter as always. The closing date is Thursday, November the 13th, and everything you need to know is at kbbreview.com/awards, and that link is in the episode description. Good luck! So hello, Dominic Worsley over at Aga Rangemaster. Hello sir, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Andrew, and nice to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you too. You're in sunny Leamington Spa, I'm assuming?
I am, although it's literally pouring down with rain like I've never seen.
Yes, that's the Leamington Spa I remember. So look, let's go straight into it here because, you know, the Aga Rangemaster story, it's hundreds of years old. They are iconic brands. So there's an awful lot to talk about what you're going to do, what your plans are. But you've been there nearly a year now. As I say, you've taken over these big brands. There's a lot of history to it. How are you finding it so far? How's your first year been as you reflect on it at this point?
I think it's been hugely enjoyable and hugely challenging at the same time to work on, as you said, they're iconic brands. We've been manufacturing in the UK, if I include Long Eaton, because people always forget about our Long Eaton factory, which produces sinks. We've actually been producing in the UK for over kind of a combined 400 years of manufacture. So you sort of walk into this thing, and I think, you know, and as you know, I've worked in major appliances and small kitchen appliances for a long time. And of course, you know the brands, but actually the depth of the brands and the depth of the knowledge within the buildings is and within the people who are often the children of people and the grandchildren of people who've been working here and even longer in the Leamington Spa cases. It's just a phenomenal place to be. It just feels great to be in it. So that feels like lots of people put out things. They say things that feel like a privilege, but it genuinely does feel like a privilege. I mean, you visited the site, you know, it's decaying. There's not enough investment, all these sorts of things. But at the heart of it, it's a company that is extremely good at producing very high quality cookers. And again, you've known me for a bit. I love cooking. I love the appliances. I love kitchen design. I love everything about the kitchen sector, and so to have ended up here just feels wonderful, if I'm honest.
Yeah, there's a real custodian element to it, I think. And I think that comes across very strongly from you when we've talked about it. You know that you won't be the last person in charge of this company. And so you've got to just leave something better behind than you found for the next person. It's like being the manager of a football team or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's exactly how I feel. So, you know, when I spoke to many people, you know, they all said the same thing, actually. They said it's sleeping giant. And really, because they've been a bit neglected. You know, I mean, you've got these brands that are wonderful. You know, Aga, incredible brand if I go back 20 years, 10 years, but sort of being left to get dusty, hadn't really had a lot of investment or energy put into it. And then Rangemaster, I think, is, you know, essentially the range cooker sector's best kept secret. It's number one. It's been number one for a very, very long time, but it's a bit too generic and probably doesn't have its own identity. And, you know, so people, when they thought they're buying a Range Master, they're probably just buying a range cooker, but they think that's the generic name for range cooker. Or they have a Range Master and they don't know it's a Range Master, they just think it's a range cooker. So it felt like, you know, it felt like a marketeer's dream to be here. I mean, I was delighted to end up here. But you're right, we got some big jobs in front of us. They need to be marketing led, but they need to leave the company in a better place than when I found it. You know, and I guess the last 8 months, so the hugely challenging bit is we've had some production challenges that came about as a result of the supply chain issues that lots of people have faced. That's made the first 8 months tricky, but also demonstrated the resilience of the brands as well, and the loyalty of retailers to the brand and consumers to the brand as well. So, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail, but I think we're over that now. But it's meant I've had to immerse myself in production, which has been fascinating. I mean, I love it. Again, huge amounts of knowledge to harness. I suppose one of the biggest things was kind of, as I say, we've got 3 factories. We've got Telford, where Agas have always been made, here, Leamington Spa, where Rangemaster cookers have always been made, and then Long Eaton, where we've always, made sinks 100 years, I think, just over 100 years. But actually harnessing and bringing together the capabilities of those 3 manufacturing sites is probably one of the biggest changes in thinking we've managed to kind of engender, because you've kind of got different skills at each site and harnessing those skills to the benefit of each other. So, we ran into this, it's no secret. Lots of your readers and retailers will know about it. We struggled to provide dual fuel gas cookers for the first 6 months of the year because we couldn't source the right component. But actually what we ended up doing was using the skills of the team in Telford to make that component. And that's actually made us much stronger as a company. It was a really difficult, complex process, certainly looked like it to me, but they learned how to do it in a very short space of time. And they now feed Leamington Spa, and it means we're much, much stronger. Actually, as a result, I think the quality of the cooker goes up as well. So there were things like that, as well as the traditional meat and drink for me, the marketing and the sales and visiting customers.
You've been on a really steep learning curve there.
Yeah.
That is outside of your normal comfort zone of marketing and brand. That's your background, as you say. Give me a bit more context, I suppose, of what some of those issues were. You say there's underinvestment and it's all a bit dusty. And how did it get to that? Because retailers know this stuff, don't they? They understand that perhaps those brands aren't what they once were, but there's still a huge amount of potential in them. What lessons can you learn from that going forward?
I think there's a general lesson in that you've got to invest in a brand to keep it relevant to today, and how you invest in it and what you do with it is absolutely crucial. And we just launched our Rangemaster TV ad on Great British Bake Off, and I hope, have you seen it? Or
it's great. It's completely different to any other appliance ad. That's what I really liked about it. You've gone in there and said, let's do something different. You're doubling down on the fact that everyone knows those brands.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. You got to distill what's the key feeling about the brand, think of it in a new way, and then hopefully come up with a powerful way that encourages change in behavior by consumers. So yeah, that's the key focus of what you need to do.
What feedback have you had from retailers about what they currently think about those brands, Rangemaster in particular? Because I suppose that's more you don't sell that many Agas in comparison to Rangemasters. So what's the feedback you've had when you've gone out and talked to retailers about what their feelings are?
You asked me, in the previous question about why I thought they'd decline. I think the other key thing I meant to say, yes, so investment in the brand, but also we're category leaders. So if you don't invest in the category is not going to grow. So I think the problem was there was this sort of assumption of a declining category, and we'll come back to it in range cooking, I mean. So that sort of meant that everybody got internally focused, and, it's a business, got to make money, it's shareholder-driven business owned by Middleby in the US. So I think it just led to a kind of shift in perspective from being outwards looking, talking to customers, to kind of how do we protect a shrinking business. And that is, I think, the fundamental problem that lay behind, or the fundamental cause behind the decline of the brands. So that's the situation I walked to. So talking to retailers, I mean, essentially lots of them felt that the answer to this was to put some investment back into the brand, and I agree with them. I think that is exactly the answer. We'll find out over the coming year. But I genuinely do. But also, I mean, actually, we've already turned around the category, Andrew. So since the beginning of the year, although we've had these problems in production, and I think this is one of these things, because we've been constantly talking to customers, not for the right reasons, sometimes to talk about delays and everything. We've sort of already started to elevate range cooking. Obviously, we talked about our plans, and I think it's exciting. It's exciting for the kitchen sector. The other cause, I'm answering 2 questions at once. The other cause was also COVID. The effect of COVID. I mean, you've written about it and talked about it lots. I think, from account managers not visiting customers to people pulling back in marketing investment. And, what I like about what we've done, and where I feel immensely supported by Middleby, is to be brave and go out and fight. If we really want to get the sector going, then let's put some bloody money into it, because actually we need to excite people. And I think the challenge is, for some people, it is definitely a cost of living crisis. I certainly wouldn't belittle that in any way. And that's a very difficult thing for those families to wrestle with. for people in the premium kitchen sector, it's where am I going to spend the money? Because they've actually all been saving because of interest rates have been high and all this sort of stuff. They're starting to spend now. Yes, some is going back on holidays, all this sort of stuff. But actually, some is back into premium kitchens or could be back into premium kitchens if brands were brave enough to put some investment in to get people spending. So, and I know some of the other brands have been doing some advertising, whether it's online or whatever. But I really like the fact we've been brave enough to go out and do a proper national TV campaign.
Yeah, look, I think I'm not dwelling on the past. I think it's important to set a context against your plans moving forward, because you have to sort of establish where you are when you take something over and when you want to grow, and you have to go out and get the feedback straight from the horse's mouth, don't you? Otherwise, what's the point? You talked a bit about you have to get your head around production issues, but what other sort of initiatives, changes have you prioritised in these 8 months to give you enough of a springboard that you can go off and do all the brand and marketing stuff?
Well, I think it's the classic thing, really, where we wanted to invest in the brands. I wanted to make sure we had the right team in place, that we had the strength in kind of marketing. So I brought in Zoe Carter, from Miele, to look after our brand efforts. I brought in Sam Rogers, who I'd worked with at Miele and then went to Visug. He's got that depth of premium and luxury experience on the sales side. He's going to head up export. That's one of our big opportunities. And then the lady I worked with at CDA, who looked after customer service there, who took their Trustpilot score to well over 4, just by being really smart at putting in new processes. She's come to help us on customer experience. But that's a mix of some outside perspectives with some incredible depth internally. So I've got a fantastic leadership team. But I think it's this business of turning a company from looking inwards to looking outwards. And to do that, you need a bit of external perspective to get people just thinking, oh, actually, yeah, no, we should be thinking about the customer first. And I think, to be honest, in Aga Rangemaster's DNA, I think it's a classic thing with really successful brands. They do start to forget the customer. I think brands that can stay on top of keeping the customer at the heart of their business are rare, and the ones that do it well are obviously really successful, and we want to be part of that group. So yeah, I think that's the other big change. So getting our customer teams, getting our production teams to think, oh, if I shift this production round, how's that going to affect that customer? I mean, rather than I just got to produce something and somebody else will sell it. So turning the whole organization, looking outwards, thinking about the customer is probably one of the, and we haven't got there yet, but we are getting there, and we're improving all the time, and we still need to do lots of things. But I think getting the right people involved, getting the right initiatives, getting people, I mean, the one other challenge, which I hadn't even thought of till I was here, we've got 3 sites. Getting people to feel like a company across 3 sites is really hard. And then again, inheriting the sort of legacy of COVID with probably made myself deeply unpopular with some people by saying, actually, I need people in the office because we've got big problems that we need to talk about. And I don't think you can't design a new cooker on Teams. It doesn't actually work. You've got to be talking face to face. You've got to be understanding what's the effect of reducing the gauge of steel or increasing the gauge of steel, or whatever it is. You've got to be developing prototypes and shoving them around. You can't do any of that stuff on Teams, and we need to feel like a company. So I'm one of those people who do think face-to-face collaboration. I'm not saying it's obviously the guys in the factory are working 7 till 4, but actually it's using your common sense and being there for the right meetings and having the right input, and those are the values I think I really wanted to focus on when I picked it up. So that's a big change.
I guess it's one of the downsides of a company with the kind of history that you have, is that there's lots of ingrained procedures and processes and things that have been around for literally 100 years that you've got to try and turn around and give people a fresh perspective on. You mentioned a little bit ago about the sort of view of range cooking in general, and you've linked the problems at Rangemaster to the popularity of the channel in general. Is there a resurgence coming? How much of that is you? How much of that is... Because I think range cooking sort of symbolises this heart of the home kind of approach to kitchens more than any other appliance does. And is that a big part of it, as well as people are kind of really investing in their forever home approach to things? So what do you think? You're going to say yes, I know you are, but yeah, what's going on with range cooking in general?
Yeah, and I can put some science behind that, actually. So I think, again, the last 10, 15 years, there's been a diet of wonderfully evocative images of pristine kitchens, beautifully minimalist, calm oases, in the home. And, you know, obviously I was part
you
of
did
that
most of them at Miele, yeah.
Yeah.
That was your fault. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, so and we know the customer journey, when people start thinking about their new kitchen, they go and they cut out pictures out of magazines. Yeah. 90% of the pictures they were seeing were built-in kitchens. So I think one of the things is actually, you know, getting people to think more about range cooking. That's got to be one of the first decisions somebody thinks about when they're thinking about that kitchen. But if there's nothing inspirational making them thinking about range cooking, then they're not going to think about range cooking. So I think that's a crucial bit in getting the range cooker category going again. And I think there's also kind of a case, you know, we all know that designers want to put as much cabinetry into the kitchen as they can, because it's, you know, it's a better return for them. And what you get with the range cooking, you said, you know, it's sort of the heart of the home. You know, it's the modern hearth, isn't it? People gather around a range cooker, and it's a very efficient cooking space. You've got 2 ovens, grill, you know, slow cooker, all in, you know, 120 centimeter width space, 6 hobs on top. It's brilliant to cook on. It's really good fun, but it's a particular type of consumer. So we're really focused. So we went out and researched all this. Obviously, we spoke to Rangemaster loyalists. We spoke to people who were looking at new kitchens. We did a lot of quant. And what we came across really, or what we identified, classic marketing way of working, we identified a group of people who we call entering their big era, which I know you will love because it's a great phrase. So what it means is range cookers work really well for young families growing up. And it's actually obvious, isn't it? Because there's lots of things you want to cook with your children, you want to cook for your children. They're kind of these very friendly, big hunks of metal in the kitchen. They've got dials to control them. You don't have complicated touchscreen kind of stuff, gizmos. They're friendly. You can spill stuff on them. You can break eggs on them. You know, they're just kind of fun, lively, dynamic cooking appliances to be around. That you're never going to get scared by a range cooker. And some of the high-tech appliances are quite tricky to use. So it's great for me to work on because it's kind of the polar opposite of built-in. It's about noise and dynamism and fun cooking.
And I think there is a certain channel of kitchen furniture, the Tom Howleys, the Harvey Jones, the Neptunes, that kind of classic British style that every manufacturer does. It's that antithesis of the handleless German approach. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, but you know, the ranges fit so well into that kind of environment. I don't want to call it a country kitchen because I think that's very reductive, but it's that kind of approach, isn't it? And the actual Aga itself, as opposed to Rangemaster, is the end of that range, isn't it? It is the absolute top of that. You know, you want to live like you're in the good life, therefore you have an Aga. And that is such a quintessentially British thing. It's like a Mini or a, you know, well, Stephen Fry or something. It's just like, it's as British can be, even though it's owned by a big American company, but most British things are. You're not going to try and fit them into a classic German kitchen, are you? You're approaching a certain sort of style of thing and a certain look that people want, and it's an open goal to kick into, isn't it? I'm doing a lot of football analogies today, aren't I?
You are.
It's the Scouser in me coming out. The season started. This is what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, I think you're right with Aga. I mean, it's the quintessential kind of realization of that idea of the half, you know, and what we know with Aga, and you know, we spend a lot of time sorting out Rangemaster and now getting onto Aga, and we're doing all of this sort of work literally as we speak. But I mean, Aga's kind of got these two audiences. They got people who grew up with an Aga. I grew up with an Aga, so I know what Aga cooking's about. But until I came here, I literally had no idea about what a modern Aga is about, and the versatility and flexibility and sustainability that you have around a modern Aga. And then you've got people who know the brand, because the brand is iconic. I think the BBC rated it as about the 3rd most iconic British brand or something like that. So lots of people know Aga, but they don't really understand it. And at the heart of Aga, you've got this wonderful cast iron cooking. That is why it works so well. That's why people talk about Aga food, the whole Mary Berry thing. Literally in this process, it's picking up all of that, those audiences, and kind of then distilling what is Aga of the future going to look like, and and we'll do something exciting and disruptive around that. Aga is it's a wonderful product, and it's made by 40 people up in Telford, where it's been made for ages, beautifully enameled. You know, we've got so much potential with Aga, Andrew. it's going to be really exciting.
Well, I think it's interesting actually that you were at Miele for a long time, as we've said, and on one look at it, you couldn't get two more extreme things of Agas and Rangemasters and Miele at the other end. But actually, they're both incredibly historic, very old brands. It would be really easy as a marketeer to completely muck that up, wouldn't it? By coming in and trying to completely reinvent it. So is it a balance between developing and growing a brand, but also not losing that kind of heritage and familiarity? You're doing that with Miele, and now you're doing it here as well. Is that difficult?
I mean, I'd love to say it's really, really difficult. And I mean, we can point to the Jaguar experiment is going on. That'll be interesting. They take another approach to it. I mean, I think you got to distill, you got to just really understand what the heritage is and how it connects to your consumer. Distill that and just essentially lock that in a cupboard at the heart of what you do. And that's what I mean. So with the Rangemaster, that's probably easier because actually it's a range cooker. It's like we said, it's dynamic and all those sort of things. With Aga, we've got to kind of distill what it is, because some people are buying Aga for the style and some people are buying it for the cooking. When they buy it for the style, they discover the cooking. And obviously, the style is less important. Those people who just went to it for the cooking. But once you've lit on that, it's a research reaction. But when you get it, in yourself, you got an intuitive feel that you're on a good track.
You've got to find the sweet spot, though, haven't you? So those adverts you're putting out, for example, it would be really easy to do an advert for Rangemaster that was a country kitchen, and there's the farmer and his wife. It'd be really easy to take that approach with it, but you haven't. You've gone down a real look. This is a family appliance here. It's about family life. It's finding that sweet spot between familiarity and heritage and moving forward and contemporizing it.
Yeah,
and I think that's I do think that's actually quite a difficult thing to do, and lots of people do get it incredibly wrong. Jaguar is a fantastic example of that.
I mean, they might have got it right. We just don't know yet. But I know there's been lots of, very diplomatic about that. But I mean, I hope they've got it right. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, this is all hugely relevant because we just launched the ad. But I do think a lot is about the chemistry of the people you've got working on it as well, and the ability to work with people you can challenge, and you've got to be able to throw those ideas around. They do need to be backed up by research, but research with Aga is more difficult than it was with Rangemasters. So it is kind of having the right people in the room as well, I think. And if you can get the right teams together, trust them, enable them, I think far too many people get involved. It'd have been really easy to go with that Rangemaster ad. Oh, we've got to show the size of the oven, or we've got to, show the pull-out drawer on the grill or something, show some bacon grilling. I mean, and it just would have been the wrong thing to do, because actually what we knew our problem was from research was actually brand awareness. So, we knew that once you went into one of our very good independents, they would do a great job of selling you the product. So really our job was to send people through the door of independents by increasing the awareness of Rangemaster, asking for Rangemaster, and then making sure they've got right products on display, make sure we get the right training support in display. So I think it's also thinking about the whole thing. And lots of people talk about 360 campaigns and integrated campaigns and all that sort of thing. And you've got to do that hard work to make sure that the benefit of the ad goes all the way through so people can sell it, and then we support it after the sales. So I think it is difficult, but it comes back to having a very clear idea of what the DNA of the brand is, and then just holding that sacrosanct at the center of what you do.
So you've talked a little bit about the retailers there. So let's go into a bit of detail about that. How important are they in this resurgence? How important are they in the plans going forward? These sort of independent kitchen specialist studios, they've all done Rangemaster at some point in their history. How important are they, and how do you sort of win them over, get them all back on board? Where do they sit in your plans, and what are those plans?
I mean, unsurprisingly, I'd say to you, they're hugely important. But I mean, they are hugely important because I think we're selling an expensive bit of kit, and I think people want to touch it and feel it. So whether it's an Aga or a Rangemaster, it's crucial that we give independent retailers the support to sell the product. But more than that, I think we can sell with the independent retailer things that we couldn't sell through any other channel. So things like, we can make any color you want. Personalization is within our gift, and build your own Rangemaster, build your own Aga. That's only deliverable through independent retailers. And I've worked now with independent retailers for a very long time. I've got huge respect for what they do. And I kind of almost want it to, I mean, this is the wrong thing, but you kind of want to keep it a secret, because when you put independent retailers into the machine of German or Swedish kind of distribution matrices, as they're called, and people always look at, or people used to look at independent retailers as kind of individual things, but as a mass, that it's a hugely important channel. And unfortunately, lots of other people have woken up to that. So I think they are hugely important, but it's no good to me just sitting there going, they're hugely important. I've got to get the structures right with our sales team, our marketing teams to deliver on what is important to them. And we all know what that is. And you mentioned it, it's margin. So you've got to have a strategy that enables people to realize the margin they wanted to realize when they bought the product from you and want to sell it on to the consumer. There's no point pretending about that. That is the challenge. But one of the wonderful things about Rangemaster, and we're talking a lot about Rangemaster this fall, but is because of the breadth of the range that we do, and we do, literally hundreds of SKUs, we can segment the market and be very clear on what benefits we want to deliver through independent retail, where we want to broaden distribution because it drives awareness for the brand. Because it is, and I think lots of retailers realize this, online can push people to store can push people to online, and you've got to be aware of all those dynamics and manage them intelligently with your team. And again, I think it comes back to getting great people. And one of the other wonderful things about working at Aga Rangemaster is it attracts good people because they're great brands. But we've got to deliver on all that, Andrew. At the moment, I think if you went and polled retailers on Rangemaster, they'd probably feel a bit let down over the last couple of years. I'm in no illusion about that, but I think we're starting to get the right things in place. We've had this fantastic investment in Rangemaster by the Americans. That's a huge vote of confidence in British manufacture, the skills of the people here. And, we talked a lot about the UK, but our ambition is global. We want to be the global centre of premium range cooker manufacturing. And then with Telford, we want to be the global centre of luxury range cooker manufacturing. And then if we invest in those brands, that will allow us to kind of move into other categories as time goes on, because we want to build really, really strong brands. And, that was my pitch to get the job, that I think, we had the ability to do that and we've got the wherewithal to do that. But if we can keep doing that, we'll keep moving results forward so the company will get more and more successful in time. And part of that, as you said, was that will give us the ability to really put Aga right back as the quintessential British cooker, which is probably my core objective over the next 3 to 5 years, is really get those volumes back into Aga, get that factory really humming again, and be distributing Aga all over the world.
Let's break that down a little bit about what sort of success looks like for you. What benchmarks have you put in place, particularly in retail? Do you have a target number of showrooms? Are you looking for a select number of dealers? What's your projection looking forward for that? And is it to open the canal again? Because I think you should do that.
Yeah.
If you're not transporting range cookers by canal in 3 years' time, then I think you've missed a massive opportunity.
That's going to be the objective then. But there are numbers. I'd like the range cooker category to grow. I want our share of the range cooker category to grow. We've got a wonderful opportunity in export. I'd like to be getting 60,000 cookers a year out of here. We're not there yet, but that's where I'd like to get to. And then on Aga, it really is. It's kind of putting, it's taking a quintessential British brand and make it relevant and lively and desired today, and people wanting to put it, whether it's, as you said earlier, country cottage or a kind of modern development or whatever, and not just here, but literally all over the world. So there's markets we haven't even tapped into yet. But America itself is a huge opportunity for us. So yes, we have an American owner. The range cooker market in the US, North America is huge. It's still the dominant means of cooking. So we're working really closely with them, and, what's the array of brands, products, what do we need to develop to really get into that market in a big way, take a strong foothold. Another core objective, and it's not a number, is really to have 3 pillars of the business. So we've got very strong UK business, but then equal sized rest of the world export and then US export. And that would make us a very, very resilient business. So if I could finish when I finish having achieved that, then I would feel very happy indeed.
The appliance market is so fascinating for people like me at the moment because there's such a focus from China and from Korea, and massive, massive manufacturers and massive, massive brands have got their eye firmly planted on Europe in that built-in market. So there's going to be a real scrap there, I think. But the difference with you is you have got a completely different story to tell. You are not getting involved in that fight. So I think it is a unique opportunity. It is a bit of a sleeping giant, I think. I agree with you, there's work to be done with your retailers, but you've got the plans there and the investment to do it. So thank you so much for running us through this. And, I love a bit of history, as you know. This is why I want the canals up and running again. Exactly. It's the ultimate sustainable transport.
For the ultimate sustainable cooker. So
exactly.
There you go.
So thanks so much, Dom, for this, and we'll talk again soon and catch up and see where we're up to.
Great. Thanks, Andrew.